K-reality shows are taking global screens by storm, and the latest to do so is a survival show, Physical 100, that has been likened to the K-drama series Squid Game. So what is the global appeal of Physical 100? What other K-reality shows have been garnering rave reviews? And what efforts are underway to make the most of this momentum? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Since its streaming on Netflix on January 24th, Physical 100 secured a cult following and steadily rose up the global charts before wrapping up its 9-episode run on February 21st. For more on this K-reality show and others, I have Professor Jae Soh at Seoul Institute of the Arts live on the line. Professor Soh, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Oh, nice to be back.
I also have Regina Kim, a freelance entertainment writer, live on the line as well. Regina, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Regina, we'll start with you then. Physical 100 reportedly took Netflix charts by storm to become the most watched non-English language show. And I understand this is the first time that a reality show has managed to achieve this level of interest. What can you tell us about its global appeal?
Yeah, so I think Physical 100 is a show that really shattered people's expectations in so many ways. Here in the US, the show became popular mainly through word of mouth. Like, I saw so many people posting on social media, telling other people to watch it. And now that the show has really spread through word of mouth, we're seeing a lot of mainstream media outlets here in the US covering the show in some way. And, you know, one thing that I kept hearing from Americans who were praising the show was how wholesome the show is, especially when you compare it to a lot of American reality shows where, you know, there tends to be a lot of trash talking and backstabbing. Many news articles here have praised the show's contestants for, you know, displaying incredible sportsmanship and also for cultivating a sense of camaraderie throughout the show. I mean, on Physical 100, you don't see the contestants trash talking each other. Instead, they're always encouraging each other and treating their fellow players with respect. And if a contestant loses a game, you know, you see them reflecting on how they themselves can improve. And we see them cheering on the remaining contestants. So I've seen, you know, many people posting online about how they love the fact that there are no egos on the show. Although, you know, there might be like one or two exceptions. But, you know, that's a rare thing to see in a lot of American reality shows.
Right, there was also a lot of feel-good element in that show, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, people were saying that the games were thoughtfully planned and very well executed. And also, I'll say that, you know, for me as an Asian American, you know, here in the US, like, Asians are often stereotyped as being weak and lacking in physical ability. And so I think this show, like, really helped break down those stereotypes.
Right, and Professor Soh, many have also likened Physical 100 to the real-life Squid Game, so to speak, minus the killing, of course. How would you describe it?
Well, Regina said it really well. I think it's a show that combines basically what a lot of these survival shows do. And it's done in a Korean style. And I think one of the most cliche things about these reality shows for surviving things in the States is, like, you know, I'm not here to make friends, is what the contestants usually say. But it seems like here everybody's supportive of each other. And as Regina pointed out, all the people are very positive. And what I really liked about Physical 100 was that just the variety of people that think they're really in, you know, top shape. You have Olympians, you have special forces, soldiers, you even have cheerleaders and YouTube stars. So it was just like this, you get to really see a slice of, you know, Korea. And then there were, you know, basically Westerners also in the show that were living in Korea. And so I thought it was really interesting in that way. And also what was really interesting about it was, like you said, Squid Game kind of, you had the reminiscent of that, you know, like you have this eye talking to you, and then you have this one prize at the end that everybody's going for. So instantly, I think it was recognizable as something that very familiar to a lot of people. But what was most interesting was just the people in the show that were just kind of competing with each other, was their perspectives and the characters. I mean, it was supposed to be unscripted, but it felt like an amazing movie.
Right, I have to agree. Regina, beyond this survival show, another about dating in Korea also became the first South Korean reality show to make it into Netflix's top 10 list of TV shows most watched globally, that is, early last year. I'm actually talking about Singles Inferno, which has been followed by a host of similar dating shows, including Transit Love. What do you suppose, Regina, has been fueling the global interest behind these Korean romance reality shows?
I have to admit that I've only watched snippets of Singles Inferno, and I haven't watched Transit Love yet because I don't think it's on any major streaming platform here in the US, at least not to my knowledge. But based on the reviews that I've seen from viewers, I think, again, the key here is the wholesomeness of these shows, especially when you compare them to American dating shows, which, tend to be more risque and raunchier. I would say kind of like with K-dramas, oftentimes less is more. You don't have to show you like someone by constantly making out with them on screen. Sometimes something as simple as holding hands is enough to convey that you really like each other. And so I think a lot of viewers, found these simple acts to be quite cute and charming and refreshing. And I think Korean TV shows, whether we're talking about like K-dramas or Korean reality shows, they're pretty good at this whole slow burn romance. Like you see the characters develop a strong emotional connection over time. And there's a lot of romantic tension that builds up naturally over the course of the show. And so I think a lot of viewers actually appreciate that. And it also makes them more invested in the characters as well. And again, there's more good-natured camaraderie on these dating shows from Korea. Like the cast members aren't constantly, bashing and backstabbing each other like we often see on American dating shows.
Right, and staying with this comparison, Professor Soh, earlier, prior to all this praise regarding K shows, there had been a bit of talk about how Korean reality shows are actually tailored for Korean audiences. What are your thoughts?
Well, it was very much like that. I mean, I think a lot of the Korean sort of reality shows, we call them ye능. And basically, it was variety shows. It had very idiosyncratic things about Korean culture that Koreans really enjoy. But I think with the advent of K-pop and K-dramas really starting to go from Southeast Asia and Asia to the West, and people really starting to understand that there's this culture in the East that has this explosive kind of thing happening. I think eventually people started to really start to watch all the reality TV shows in Korea that we thought were just too local for global audiences. But as we see with Physical 100, as Regina pointed out, there's a lot of differences between what reality shows in the U.S. are trying to do and what Korean shows are doing. There's more of a humanistic and more of a soft approach to it. And then we get details about how the characters each feel about each other. There's interviews where instead of one person, bashing on another person or criticizing them, they would actually it's a very Asian thing, but they would kind of reflect upon themselves to see how can I be better at something instead of focusing out on the results of the thing. So those are things that I think are refreshing to the global audiences. And I think right now, as you know, Netflix and a lot of these OTT brands that were primarily focusing on dramas are really starting to launch a lot of reality TV shows. And there's a new show, 서진네, which is like a big show in Korea that's, launching in Amazon Prime. So we're really starting to see sort of Korean local reality shows that are starting to have popularity all around the world.
Right, and staying with that, Regina, statistics actually do show that 60% of all Netflix members watched a Korean program last year. Do you suppose this figure implies that the Korean element, so to speak, may have been the deciding factor behind the recent global popularity of its reality shows?
I think it definitely helped, but I wouldn't say it was the deciding factor because, this show obviously still has to be good and still has to be appealing for a mainstream audience. That said, I think now there are more people around the world who are willing to give Korean shows a chance. Like, for example, here in the US, I'm already hearing a lot of Americans say that they don't really watch American TV shows anymore because they find K-dramas to be more entertaining. Also, we should keep in mind that Netflix has already seen how popular Korean shows can be. I mean, Squid Game is still the most watched Netflix show of all time. We oftentimes see K-dramas ranking on Netflix's global top 10 chart. So Netflix has invested heavily in Korean content. It has already invested hundreds of millions of dollars in Korean content. It released 25 Korean titles last year, and this year it's releasing 34. So, in short, Netflix has really bet big on Korean content. So obviously, it hopes that its bet will continue to pay off, and that means, getting people to watch Korean content. And we also have to remember that, if Netflix wants people to watch a show, like one of the easiest and most effective marketing tools it has is to simply push a show in front of viewers when they log into the platform. And it's a fact that, Netflix tends to promote its originals more than licensed content. So, for example, both Physical 100 and Singles Inferno are Netflix originals. And so if you combine that with Netflix's algorithm, which recommends content based on what you've watched in the past. And, we know that a lot of people have watched Squid Game and All of Us Are Dead and other Korean shows in the past. So if you combine all of that, like chances are that, many viewers around the world have already seen a lot of Korean shows, and they saw, including these Korean reality shows. Like every time they, logged into Netflix, they probably saw Singles Inferno or Physical 100 pop up somewhere on the screen.
Right, I'd have to agree there. Professor, so moving forward, a number of Korean reality show formats have become global franchises over the years. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, well, it really started with a lot of dramas at first, but I think now the reality shows like, 복면 가수 or The Masked Singer or I Can See Your Voice are big hits now in basically America. And, things like shows like Running Man or there's a show in Korea where it was a bunch of old people called 꽃보다 할배, which is now called Better Late Than Never, starring William Shatner and a whole bunch of oldie people coming out doing the same thing. So again, I think what Hollywood really loves to do, or the mainstream in America likes to do, is they see the popularity and the way things work in a different country, and then they customize it to American audiences or Western audiences. So I think that trend has really paid off for a lot of situations. There's a show called The Good Doctor, for example, that was remade into an American show. So we're getting a trend of like what works, and because of the streaming services that are internationally, watched by everybody globally, people are familiar with the content, and so to take something that works in another culture and then basically redo it in the language and the culture of your own seems to be working very well. But nowadays, what's really working well is also just people aren't so turned off by listening to foreign languages because of the really good subtitles, or there's a lot of dubbing that you can watch. So you can actually directly watch a show in Korean reality TV, and it's not that, in the past it was kind of foreign, it's really hard to read the subtitles, but you can actually hear the dubbing on a lot of these services. So these are the kind of changes that are happening.
Right. Regina, Korean reality shows, they often include on-screen written commentary or emojis. How important do you suppose are their roles in Korean shows?
Well, I think they could be helpful and entertaining if you understand the Korean language and you don't need subtitles. Or, if you've already been watching tons of Korean variety and reality shows for a long time and you're just, used to seeing them on screen. Or, some people who are learning Korean might want to see those words on screen in order to improve the Korean vocabulary. But, for the majority of people who don't know Korean and aren't familiar with Korean style reality shows, I think having those on-screen written comments could feel overwhelming. So if you take Physical 100 as an example, that's a show that did not have these on-screen comments. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why it was a particularly huge hit here in the US, because many Americans who are watching the show have to rely on subtitles. And, that can be difficult enough if you're not used to reading subtitles. But then, imagine having to read the subtitles for the comments as well on top of that. And especially for a show like, Physical 100, where you have tons of contestants constantly, commenting on each other's performances, that would be a lot of subtitles to keep up with. So I think if Physical 100 had those kinds of comments, it would have been too distracting and overwhelming. Like, I really think the creators of that show made the right choice in not including those comments, and instead just really relying heavily on the verbal comments and verbal interactions among the contestants. I thought like the way that they did voiceovers by contestants so that we could understand like what the players were thinking and feeling in that moment. Like, I think that really helped keep viewers engaged. So I think for on-screen written comments, like it really depends on the audience that you're targeting.
Right, of course. Professor, so you earlier mentioned Amazon buying its first K-reality show, Jinny's Kitchen, I believe, which in Korean is Sojinine, and accordingly, it seems like the networks here in South Korea, which previously viewed streaming platforms as competitors, are now regarding these streaming platforms as partners. How do you respond to this shift in perspective?
Well, actually, they're competitors in a sense that, if you're trying to do your own OTT streaming service in Korea that wants to go global, it's really hard to compete with Amazon or Netflix because of their wide reach, and they've been doing it for so long. But a lot of the Korean content providers are figuring out that, hey, instead of us actually streaming it ourselves, we can actually license our IP with a lot of these streaming services. So that's the tack they're taking. So, like The Attorney Woo, for example, is another show that was created by a Korean company, and then it's shown on Netflix and a lot of other platforms around the world. So I think Seojin이 there, were, that show going on Amazon Prime was actually very striking because Amazon is, primarily it's a different model from Netflix in the sense that Netflix is subscriber-based. Amazon is also subscriber-based, but they're really trying to sell whatever they're selling on Amazon, which is everything. So I remember somebody telling me sort of like the model for Amazon is we basically advertise on movies so we can sell shoes, something like that. Whereas, Netflix is all about just getting people to subscribe on the channel to show the actual stuff. So I think right now a show about cooking, a reality show about that really works well with Amazon in a sense because they're primarily, selling stuff on the internet for things like cooking, which is, culinary arts is like a big thing around the world. So I think it was a smart move on their part. And I think if that success is seen by other platforms, I think a lot of Korean reality TV, producers, production companies are going to be very busy for the years to come. I do think that the streaming services from the States that have come in, like Netflix and other, Disney Plus and things like that, they've kind of really affected the film end of it a little bit because now, the film industry is really targeted by streaming, people not going to see movies in theaters and things like that. But it's not just a Korean phenomenon, but it's happening in America as well.
Right, unfortunately. Do you expect that scenario, the impact, negative impact that is on the film industry to continue for the time being, Professor Soh?
Well, I mean, it's just because of the COVID crisis, the pandemic, people are used to watching stuff at home. And it seems like now a lot of the technology, the LED technology and all the televisions are really massive in the home. So the screen size is really huge and they have surround sound capability, especially in the US where it's not apartment-based living, but mostly housing, like in the house. So you could really blast the sound on things. And so I think people, unless it's like an event like, say, Avatar or one of the Marvel movies or something of a big scale like, Top Gun, the Maverick movie, I think people are willing to go see movies like that. But it seems like now they've been really spoiled by watching movies on streaming services. And there's a combination of different reasons for it. But in Korea, for example, the minute the theaters opened back up, they really raised the prices of the tickets, and it really affected the sales of ticket prices, tickets in the box office. So these are things that we have to kind of think about. But the film industry is really resilient, and I think they're going to really try to get people to come back. But in a country as small as South Korea, we could really rejuvenate the film industry. But I'm afraid in America, where it's like a big continent with a lot of theaters all over the whole land, I think it's really hard for them to fill the seats for all those movies. So I think for now, it's really affecting us. And I've even heard Steven Spielberg talk about to Tom Cruise saying that, thank you for making Maverick because it really got people to come back to the movie theater. But his movie, The Fabelmans, nobody's going to see it in the theater, so that's the irony.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Regina, what are now some of the other K-contents that audiences can look forward to?
Yeah, so there are some really highly anticipated K-dramas and unscripted shows that are scheduled to be released on Netflix this year. So the first one that I'll mention is Part 2 of The Glory, which is scheduled to come out this Friday. Personally, I'm super excited for that one. The Glory, of course, is a revenge drama starring Song Hye-kyo and written by the famous screenwriter Kim Eun-suk. There's also a thriller series called Gyeongsang Creature that's slated to be released in Q4. It will have a star-studded cast including Park Seo-joon, Han So-hee, Lee Ah-jun, and others. Netflix has billed it as a creature thriller that's set in Gyeongsang, which is the old name for Seoul. And the drama is about a group of people who fight against evil creatures that are quote-unquote like born out of human greed. There's also season 2 of another creature thriller called Sweet Home, which is scheduled to be released in Q4. There's also season 2 of DP, which is the popular drama about the South Korean military starring Jung Hae-in. That's also coming out later this year. And on the reality TV show front, there's this new reality survival show called Zombieverse, where contestants have to complete quests to survive a zombie apocalypse. The show's creative team includes, people who worked on Kingdom and All of Us Are Dead. I've seen like thumbnail images and read articles about it. It looks and sounds super exciting, and I have a feeling it'll be a huge hit. And of course, we also have season 3 of Singles Inferno coming out later this year.
Right, and we'll probably be talking about those reality shows in the near future as soon as they come out then, Regina. In the meantime, Professor Soh, the Yoon administration has spoken about efforts to expand the Korean K-content industry and to boost its exports, of course. What are your proposals?
Well, the present regime has actually promised those things, especially they call it K-contents. It's not my favorite word, but it seems to include everything from fashion, tourism, to K-foods, to IT. And they're going to really boost a lot of things for that. So I think there will be some, benefits that the film industry or the content business that's going to, get from that. But at the same time, I think the government, in terms of their main focus, is probably on the bigger sort of industries like the food industry, like K-food or K-fashion, things like that. So eventually that money trickles down to entertainment as well. But a lot of times when I am asked by Arirang TV and a lot of different outlets for comments about how the Korean government has done in terms of, basically supporting the entertainment industry, I've always kind of said that they're always late to the game. I mean, we do all the work, we do the hard lifting, and then they come in at the end to say, by the way, we'll really increase your budget or make it so that it's easier for you to make movies or make dramas or, make reality TV shows. So they're always kind of, I think to make something great in arts or in entertainment, it's like lightning in a bottle. It's really hard to do that. And a lot of really creative and amazing, talented people in Korea are doing it. And I think we are really looking forward to the government supporting us, but they're always kind of late to the game. So that's my only worry about that.
Right. Hopefully they'll start early this time around. Regina, very briefly speaking, what do you suggest to ensure that Korea makes most of this current cultural momentum? I believe we have like 1 minute left.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to films and TV shows, the key really is to continue creating content in a variety of genres and, continuing to be innovative when continue to be innovative without trying too hard to cater to a specific audience. Because, I think if you do that, that's when you lose some of the authenticity and wholesomeness that make these Korean shows appealing to international audiences. I really hope that Korean creators won't feel pressure to make the next Squid Game or more movies like Parasite, because we've already seen that shows that are more wholesome and less violent, like 2521, Extraordinary Attorney Woo, Business Proposal, these have also done pretty well globally, including here in the US. So I think it would be great if these Korean content creators could just continue creating this wide array of different genres.
Right, very good comments right there. All right, thank you so much, Regina, for your time and your thoughts. And Professor Soh, as always, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends Tuesday's edition of Issues and Insiders. Tomorrow is International Women's Day, March 8th, and we plan to address related matters then. Thank you for now.